Welcome back. We are here with my dad again. This time we are taking a little bit of a pivot though, and we are going to be talking about more of the college aspect when it comes to changing careers, as well as taking a little bit of a touch on AI. So, why don't we go ahead and get started into the topic?
Pivot is a good word for what you should be thinking about your abilities and not starting over. Pivoting is a good word to use. You just have to look for opportunities. You have to be ready for opportunities. And your tolerance, your risk tolerance has a lot to do with whether or not you act on it.
Right. Going back onto the topic of last time, when it comes to growing and changing, I had another discussion with a different person yesterday about careers and the school system like nowadays. And she was telling me that she has a daughter that's 12 and her daughter is using AI now in school, in middle school. And the thing is that she doesn't necessarily discourage the use of that to an extent, because when you get to the real world and you go to a job, you're going to be the one that's behind if you're not using AI. So she doesn't want to completely discourage her daughter from using it, but she also doesn't want her to completely rely on it instead of learning. We started talking about how the school system is pretty outdated in the way that it's structured, and it also forces you, especially in the US, to decide what you want to do when you're 18 years old. And they make you think that you need to know exactly what you want to do right when you graduate high school at age 18, 17, or 18. And that's not realistic. And most of the times, people don't actually know what they want to do. But the problem is that at that age, you feel pressured to decide and to know, because I think there's also the pressure of when you're in college to be able to finish within 4 years or less. And if you don't decide on your major or on your future career fresh off the bat, then you might take an extra semester or two in college, more than that 4 years. So I think it kind of just keeps going from there, because the pressure starts early on, and then if you don't figure it out early on, you assume that it's going to take you longer to get started in the real world.
Your situation, though.
Right. So I did want to ask you, what when you were, graduating high school, is there something that you wish that you would have known when you were that age, whether it was graduating high school or maybe like starting off in college?
I think when you're the younger you are, you probably just have a limited you have a limited set of experiences of what kind of jobs there are, and you definitely have a limited idea of what those jobs that you know of, what they do, and what the experiences are. The sooner you can put yourself in that practical situation, the better. Like,
Right.
I wanted to, about halfway through my college career, I decided that I wanted to get into teaching. I did not step foot in a classroom to teach until I was in my last semester.
Mhm.
Um, and I actually, during my internship, which I enjoyed, but it was a shock. There's one fellow student that we would get together after the end of the day, and we'd talk about what happened and everything. He actually dropped out the last week
Mm.
of the internship. He decided it wasn't for him. And that's kind of sad to go through, 4 years of school and then decide that's not what you want to do. You don't want to be a teacher. But it was English, so you could kind of transfer it to something else. I think it does depend on your situation, though, on how soon you have to pick and how much opportunity you have to change your mind and change your path. You do want
Mhm.
to do what makes you happy, but no decision is permanent.
Right.
No job decision's permanent. You can always go back to school. You know, especially while I was working, I went back to school, and it's funny how when you're in a job that may be a little bit hard to deal with, just knowing that you're going to school at night to get out of that is a good feeling because you know you're
Yeah,
moving in the right direction.
definitely.
Um, but some people aren't able to stay in school for 4 or 5 or 6 years to figure out what they want to do. Especially, I think one of the worst things you can do is stay in school and continue to accumulate debt because then no matter what your career is, you're going to have the stress of not, ever being able to catch up, and you don't want to put yourself in that situation.
Right. But do you think that when it comes to kind of switching your route, maybe you're in college a year or two in and you realize that what you're doing is not for you, whether it was through an internship or whatever. Do you think there's kind of the stereotypical fear of like starting over and starting over in a new major or just a new category of work in general?
Yeah, but you got to remember, school is not work. Just going to school, okay? The things you do when you're in school, no matter what your career is going to be, you're learning to do research. You're learning to communicate. And these are transferable skills to just about any career. And I mean, other than going in for like a technical field where you actually need to learn how to like, you know, fix refrigerators or code programming, things like that. Even that you can learn, you know. And,
Right.
and when you're talking about AI, that's also a transferable skill. So, you know, I was just talking today about how, where I work, they restrict whether or not you have a co-pilot license. A co-pilot license is $150 a year, I think, for where I work. Only 10% of the employees have it because you have to justify having it. And to me, everybody would benefit from having Copilot because it makes you more productive. It gets you to the end goal faster, and it
Mhm.
doesn't think for you. You still have to come up with the idea and feed it some information. It just gets you to the end faster. Just like a calculator gets you to find out what, 250 times 7,622 faster
Sure.
than you sitting here down and doing it on paper.
Yeah.
It's just a tool to assist you with that. And so, not using it is to me like telling somebody to do the math on their hand at work, and that's ridiculous.
Right.
So yes, I think that's that parent's advice is good advice.
Yeah. Yeah.
It has to do with your tolerance and your ability to stay in school. You shouldn't fear starting over, but some people think you're starting over, but really you're just pivoting. You know what I mean? Starting
Right.
over implies that you're going all the way back to the beginning, but you've already learned something. Say you spend 2 years in school and you're trying to learn, you're in pre-med or whatever.
Mhm.
Most of that is transferable to something else.
Right.
You don't have to start over. You are starting a little bit further behind than somebody else, but you don't, if unless you're pivoting all the way to like you're now going to get a law degree, well, still, you still learn things that you
Mhm.
will apply. And it makes you a better whatever you're going to be because you have a more well-rounded experience and understanding of things.
Right.
So none of it is useless.
Yeah, that was another thing. I saw this post on Instagram that was kind of like I've been seeing a lot of these recently on social media, kind of just like posts out there that make it sound like my generation or anyone in college right now is doomed because of the whole introduction of AI into taking over all the jobs as everyone's saying and all that kind of stuff. Well, then I saw a post that was basically saying this and like saying how we should be if you're in college right now, just make sure that you're not accumulating debt for not being able to find a job when you get out, which I can see from an extent. But then I go to the comments because I was curious to see what other people had to say about this. And one of them really stuck out to me because she said something like, we shouldn't be putting down the people that want to go to school or go to college because you're not in college just to work, just to find a job. You're also in college to get new experiences, to learn how to communicate, to learn how to, like you said, do research, or even learn how to learn or use your resources. So it's a lot of different things that you can find beneficial that don't necessarily have to be the reason that you get a certain job. It can just help you out in your future as a person to grow. And maybe, also, of course, a degree looks pretty good when you're trying to get a job, but it doesn't have to be that you go to college for the sole reason of trying to get a job. It can also be, I think, a way to just grow and learn.
Yeah, development. hmm Yeah,
Yeah.
because college is like one of the first times some people are exposed. Well, first of all, if you're in high school, not everybody's in a big town, but even if you are, it's really tight knit to whatever community you're in. You go to
Mhm.
college, you're getting people from all over the place, unless
Right.
it's a community college, but still, people come in from all over, and you're exposed to different cultures and different experiences. You're often exposed to more freedom. Freedom is something you've got to learn. You've got to learn there's a discipline to it, because people who didn't get a taste of it in high school and get some exposure to having their own decision and time management, when they're always being told what to do and when to be where, they've got to learn to do that for themselves. And that's a muscle you need to work out, because it doesn't come automatically. So yeah,
Right.
there's so much you learn. And like I said, then you get to the workforce and you got to kind of retrain yourself now to where, oh, now someone's telling you to be somewhere exactly this time. It's interesting how college is in the middle, but you starting in elementary school where you have to go between this hour and this hour, and this is when you eat lunch. And then, you go to college and you're kind of like all over the place. But then most careers are back to the 9 to 5. Now, doesn't mean you have to do that. It depends on what kind of work you want to do.
Right. So, kind of going back to your own experiences, like in the last episode, we talked about how you had a lot of different jobs. And I was curious to know if maybe your own definition of success kind of changed from maybe around the time that you were in college. And maybe for each job that you had, did you have a slightly different, I don't know, a definition of that for yourself? Did that change more than once? How did that look for you?
Well, I really didn't have a clear vision for a long time. My vision, they say you should do like a 3-year goal and then a 5-year goal. I think last time I said that, I had got into state government, and I figured I'm just going to apply every year to advance and keep advancing, and realized that people were beating me out because of their credentials, not just experience, but education. So that's when I said, well, I'm just going to go get a master's degree, because then no one can say that's the reason. But, I think also it had to do with the time. And this is something that I think your generation is going to have to deal with, is there's just not going to be as many jobs available,
Yeah.
because a lot of things. But all that is a pivot moment, because AI can't do everything. So if you were headed towards something that is going to be a higher percentage taken away by AI, and I think that would be like law, the field of law,
Mhm.
um, and some medical things like that, where people are just
Business, maybe.
get in business, tax and financial type things.
Mhm.
Uh, People will get advice more through things like that. But I think still, anytime there needs to be a hands-on type approach, you're still going to have that. You're still going to
Right.
have that need. And people are eventually, people are going to end up, AI is not perfect. People will take advantage of it and there'll be scams out there and things like that. So,
I think that's
so
already starting.
yeah, you want to deal with somebody personal. So, but my point is that there, all these are just moments to pivot and look for opportunities. And as long as you're learning and bettering yourself, you will always advance. Now, you may have to be prepared to take on a different type of work than you initially thought. It may require more traveling than you initially thought, or less traveling than you initially thought, or you may need to manage people. And I've found in most cases, if you want to advance, you end up leading a team.
Right.
So you have to think about that. And it's interesting is you don't go to college to be a leader. That's people don't think about that. There might be some classes on it or maybe some books on it, but it's not like you can learn that as easily in a class. There's textbook leadership, but the best leaders don't learn from textbooks. So I think that's something you just have to do. And you learn from working with leaders. And
True.
that's something you have to have experiences in. AI
Hmm.
can't tell you how to do that. It can coach you.
Right.
Um,
In that case, would you say that you didn't really have a clear vision, but what your idea of success was at the time? Did it change as you went into
yes,
different jobs?
it became more abstract. It became less of a salary and more of a feeling.
Right.
So to me, success was being able to spend more time with my family and still have a career.
Uh-huh.
Being able to help make someone be the best they could be at work and not really focusing on me. I got more out of that. And also getting work done through others instead of having to do it myself. And, you know, in the beginning, you're like, everybody get out of the way. I'll just do this because it's taking too long. And then you learn that you really have to teach other people to leverage yourself, to take that experience and spread it out across a team.
Hmm.
So all of that is something I did not realize that in the beginning. Almost like going from a production line to a strategic line.
It seems like it's pretty fair to say that starting fresh out of college or out of high school, your definition or idea of success is going to be a little bit more external. And then as you kind of grow and learn more about the world and about yourself, the idea of success or your definition of success is probably going to become more internalized.
Yes, that is exactly true. And definitely don't get hung up on salary. Salary is important. Um, you don't want to be taken advantage of, and you also don't want to be in a situation where there's people around you making more than you and you're doing more work. But truly, I found it's more what you do with your money than what you make. And at the end of the day, you could be making a lot of money and be miserable. So you don't want that to be your only goal.
Yeah.
But definitely they change over time. And it's whatever it is for you. And I think it's good to check yourself on that. The thing about when you first start out, you're probably thinking, having a job and staying somewhere for 5 years is a long time. I mean, I don't know, you probably can't even imagine working somewhere for 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah. It
Next
does
thing
sound
you
like a long
know,
time for me.
the next thing you know, your look back is like 15 years and you're like, where did that time go? So it's good to check yourself and what makes you happy regularly, because you get into a routine and you just keep doing. Having someone to reflect off of, even if it's AI, to be able to bounce those thoughts and ideas off of is very important.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. I think it's really good to check in a lot of times. I mentioned that in the episode about like the New Year episode I made with goals and accomplishments,
Mm.
because I think it's really important to kind of check in and realize that if time is passing really fast for you personally, if you feel like time is flying by, you might want to reevaluate your routine, because the times in your life when that go by the fastest are probably the ones that are just very routine and set in schedule, and you might not be doing that much in your life to actually make things exciting or happy for you, because just going day by day.
Yeah.
So, what do you think a successful career looks like to you now then?
Hmm. I'm kind of at the tail end. If I right now I'm leveraging my experiences. So I have a lot of experience in several what we call spaces, fields, particularly in public assistance and public systems that support public assistance programs. And so every state in the United States deals with that, and every state has a certain number of certain standards they have to abide by in order to get the federal dollars. Having that experience and the ability to negotiate with vendors on these programs, I'm at the point where I'm leveraging that and just helping other people, not really looking to lead anything myself anymore. Um, I'm not looking to implement any major things. I'm not looking to run for any major office or any position. Just help other people with their ideas. And what I would say is just accelerate wherever it is they're going just by with that experience, all the lessons learned and pitfalls. It changes over time because my risk tolerance is a lot different now than it was before. Before I had to keep getting that paycheck and had to keep that at that job. And as it changes, you can be a little more open to different ideas.
Right, right. Do you have any advice for people that are, I would say, early in their careers, maybe just starting out after college, and they're in the position that you just said, where they feel like that 5 year plan ahead of them, if they were still working in the same career, same job position, it just sounds like a really long time. And that would be crazy if they were still working there.
Right. That's when you need to think about, well, what can I be doing to be advancing no matter what? Like how am I investing in me, in my development? So no matter what, if you are continuing your education or you're working on certifications, take advantage of every program that your employer has to offer. And where I was, the state of Florida had a program to where if you could relate it to your job, they would pay for your tuition. So
Hmm.
I went to night class. The only thing I had to do was wait. I had to wait to be the last one to register for class because my tuition was free, right?
Mm. Yeah.
um, I would just call the professor ahead of time and say, "Hey, you're going to fill up. Is there a chance that you can open up one more seat at the end?" And they'd almost always say yes if you asked.
Hmm.
So I was taking advantage of that, and knowing that whatever mundane job I had where I felt like I was pushing paper for 8 hours, I was like, "Yeah, but I'm going to class. I'm
Right.
doing more." And I did that for almost 5 years, just going to school at night. So you just, things like that. You don't want to be one of these people that's just miserable in a job and doesn't have a way out.
That's the scariest position to be in, I think.
Yeah. But you're not in that position. It's all what's in your mind and the way you feel. It's not
Mhm.
it's not what is reality. You don't have to do that. There's always another option.
And what about the advice for people that are living paycheck to paycheck within their job? They don't feel like there is another option.
I know. Uh it really does depend on your situation. If you're unable to get any other to look at any other career paths to, and it does take work, but it does depend on your situation. I don't want to say it was easy for me, but I also don't want to say it was really hard. It's like a lot of it just came natural, and also I didn't have a problem working 12-hour days. I think you have to condition yourself for these things, and then do work at night to prepare for school. So you have to condition yourself for these things, and time management is very important. In college, I was working a couple jobs, so because I did not want to have debt, and I paid for it on my own. So, I don't think it's as easy now. I think tuition was like 10% of what it is now, but I do think that there's still opportunities.
They will pay for your tuition.
That's it. Yeah. I mean, take advantage of it. Like anything like that, you can't go wrong. And the thing about that is your employer sees it. Your employer knows it. I will say hands down, if somebody is one of your people, and they are also, if they do a good job and they're also going to school at night, you're probably going to look at them for the next promotion that comes up. It's just, you just do, because this person's a hard worker and they're trying to better themselves. It just looks good. So take advantage of every training, everything. Now, don't be one of those people that never does their job and just goes to trainings, because there's those people too. There's literally people that will sign up for every training. You're like, you're not even using this. You're going to get the certificate put on your wall, and then you're going to the next training. You don't want to do that, but you need to, take advantage of those when you can. And that's really smart. So, and then, as far as, that's my advice early in their career. Like, there's always, as soon as you get a job working for some organization, it's going to be a huge shock to you, because you're just not used to that. You're not used to this 9 to 5, this hourly thing where you've got to punch a clock, and you don't have to do that literally anymore. But I literally had jobs where you went bam, bam with a card in a machine.
There's a way to do it, but it's just online now.
Right. And you put a stamp on there, and then it would be like someone would add those hours up every week.
Yeah.
But there are jobs like that. It's still, at least where someone's watching you, and you're required to be sitting somewhere. Maybe you're handling calls that come in, or complaints that come in, or you're at a desk where you have to serve people in some way. You're going to have a requirement to be somewhere, and it's different than you're used to, because you might have been used to just like, look, at the end of the day, as long as I finish 20 things, I'm good. If you get a job like that, great, where it doesn't matter if you're working in the morning, in the middle of the day, or at night, and as long as you get it done, that's a good job. But there's a lot of organizations that expect you to be somewhere. And if you don't show up, they're like, what are you doing? Like, are you pretending to be sick? Like, what's going on?
Right.
And a lot of people just out of school, I realized, did not have any of that experience. I'd worked all the way through high school and college. So I always had that experience with somebody. Like, you're always beholden to somebody. But a lot of people don't have that. So my advice is just get ready for that, brace yourself, and get through it. Like, it's a culture shock. Don't fight it. Just figure out how to learn, live with it. If it's overbearing, then find something else.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you work through college, you'll kind of have that experience.
Especially in the service industry, because there's a dependency to be at a certain place at a certain time.
Right. You actually do need to show up and be present there. You can't just do it from home or online. Yeah.
And with all the data we have now, it's so easy to measure performance. So just be ready for that. and embrace it. Just say, learn what it is, just like a grade at school. That's a transferable skill. You learn, like getting grades is even so much easier than it used to be, right? Like, exactly in every class you're in what your status is. We used to have to do it by hand and figure it out. Like, exactly what your grade is going into your final exam, right?
Right.
It shouldn't be a mystery, right?
Except
So,
we still calculated sometimes. I mean, at least I know I do. We calculate what the lowest grade we have to get on the final exam to
yeah,
keep a certain
right.
grade.
But
Yeah.
it's still easier to do, right?
Yeah.
And so, it's just like that though. You learn the game. You learn to play it. And in any job is just like that. You learn the 1,000 things you need to learn and you're good. You're like, okay, this is the game. This is how you play it. And this is what I need to do to be successful.
Yeah.
Find out what those are and just be productive and be valuable, make yourself valuable. The more valuable you are, the less likely you're going to get laid off when things are a downturn. The more
Right.
flexible you are, the less likely that they're going to let you go because of something like that, or that you're going to be able to find another opportunity quickly. You got to have value and you got to know your value.
That's an important part. That's very important. To be able to speak what you have and know what you have, be able
Mm-hmm.
to show it off and talk about it. And be
Mm-hmm.
confident in it too by recognizing patterns in your own behavior, because if you just do something once or twice, it's not really part of your identity yet, but once you start doing patterns of things, it's easier to recall as part of your identity.
Patterns are in your character.
So, I guess before we wrap up this episode, I do just want to emphasize to the listeners, if they didn't get anything from this episode, they should take away this with them, that you're allowed to change your mind on things. If you change your career path, that's okay. You're just taking a pivot, you're not doing a full pushback and restart. You're just kind of doing a little bit of a turn. And any direction forward is a good direction because you're still learning no matter what you're doing, what you're learning about. Any step forward is progress.
Absolutely.
That concludes today's episode. Thank you guys for listening today. Tune in every Thursday to listen or watch on YouTube and Spotify. And I am also on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, and Audible for audio only. Make sure to check out the Instagram or the TikTok at findyourpower_podcast. And feel free to DM me there as well. Thank you guys again so much for tuning in and listening. I appreciate you all for being here. If you enjoyed, please rate the podcast 5 stars on Apple or Spotify. Leave any comments or reviews. And also, if you guys listen on the YouTube channel, please subscribe there and hit the bell notification as well. It really helps the podcast grow, and it also notifies you whenever I release a new episode. Also, if you have a family member or a friend that you think could benefit from this episode, we don't gatekeep here. Send this to them, and maybe they'll thank you later for it. And lastly, if you'd like to be featured for an interview or a conversation just like this one, you can send me an email at the email linked in the podcast description section or shoot me a DM on the Instagram. I will talk to you guys again soon, and don't forget, we will find your power.